The vet hugged the gorilla. A minute later, something unexpected happened. The air in the primate wing usually smelled of damp earth and sweet fruit, but that morning it smelled like fear. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day Emily Donovan preferred, with the gray sky hanging low over the city and the rhythmic drumming of rain against the skylights of the Regenstein Center creating a hypnotic, drowsy atmosphere. Inside, the air was thick with the earthy, humid scent of peat moss and the musk of the animals, a smell that to Emily felt like home. But today, the chaotic symphony of the day had fallen silent. Kobe, the sanctuary's youngest gorilla, a bundle of chaotic hair and boundless energy, wasn't eating his bamboo. He was standing on the sterile metal exam table, his dark, soulful eyes fixed on Dr. Williams, with an intensity that felt like a silent, desperate plea. When the vet reached out to give the fragile infant a rare, comforting hug, no one expected that, a minute later, the entire team would be fighting to save a life. What happens when a moment of pure human compassion triggers a biological revelation that defies all medical logic? We expected a routine checkup when Dr. Williams embraced this small, vulnerable gorilla today. Instead, we witnessed a medical emergency that turned into a miracle of interspecies trust. Before we dive into this incredible, heart-wrenching moment, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to keep sharing these powerful stories of survival and the unbreakable bonds of the animal kingdom. Ring that bell so you never miss an update. Emily had been working as a lead zookeeper for nearly 5 years, and she had seen just about everything. She knew the distinct personalities of every ape in her care better than she knew some of her own cousins. She knew that Kobe was a soulful, gentle infant with a jagged scar on his left palm from a childhood injury, a mark that Emily often thought of as a shared secret between them. Usually, Kobe was a blur of motion tumbling through the straw, but today the atmosphere had shifted. The air grew heavy, charged with a static that made the hair on Emily's arms stand up. Kobe was frozen, his small body rigid, staring into the camera lens with wide, whisker-fringed eyes that seemed to be searching for an answer to a pain he couldn't name. It started with a sound, a soft, gentle, grunting noise laced with a strange urgency. Emily had been organizing new enrichment activities in the back room when she heard it. She dropped the burlap sack and walked briskly to the observation booth. On the monitor, she saw Kobe standing on all fours, his eyes wide with the whites visible, a clear sign of extreme primate stress. Something didn't sit right in Emily's gut. That primal instinct, the one that every good zookeeper develops over years of watching non-verbal creatures, began to scream at her. Kobe wasn't being difficult. He was suffering. "James, I'm going to need you to help me transport Kobe to the clinic," Emily said into her radio, her voice steady but tight. "He's standing perfectly still, and his respiration is through the roof." James, the head keeper, responded immediately. "Got it. I'm bringing the carrier now." By the time they reached the clinic, Kobe was huddled in the corner of his transport unit. Once placed on the cold stainless steel table, he didn't try to run. He just stood there, his long whiskers twitching, his gaze fixed on Dr. Williams as if the man were his last hope. Dr. Williams arrived, his face grim as he observed the infant. "He's barely moved," Emily told him, her voice trembling. "And look at his breathing. It's too fast, too shallow." Dr. Williams pressed his face close to the little gorilla, squinting as he took a stopwatch from his pocket. After 15 seconds, he lowered the watch. Respiration is through the roof. And look at the color of his gums, they look pale even from here. We need to do a full workup. Seeing the terror in the infant's eyes, Dr. Williams did something he rarely did during an exam. He stepped forward and scooped Kobe into his arms, pulling the small, shaggy body against his white lab coat in a profound gesture of empathy. But a minute later, while Kobe was still nestled against the doctor's chest, the infant's body suddenly went limp. The palpable tension in the air snapped into pure panic. Kobe's grip on the doctor's coat loosened, his head falling back. "He's flatlining," Dr. Williams barked, his authority cutting through the silence. "James, get the oxygen. Emily, help me get him onto the monitor. Go, go, go." The next 10 minutes were a blur of controlled chaos. The clinic, once quiet, became a hive of activity. Monitors beeped frantically, oxygen masks were fitted over Kobe's small muzzle, and blood was drawn with the speed of a team that refused to lose. Emily stood by Kobe's head, her fingers brushing the coarse hair of his brow, whispering to him while Dr. Williams worked. She watched the cardiac monitor. The green line was a mess, jagged, irregular peaks and valleys that made no sense. "He's in atrial fibrillation," Dr. Williams announced, his voice tight with focus. "His heart isn't pumping effectively. Blood is pooling in the lungs." They ran a quick ultrasound, and the diagnosis hung in the air like a sentence: dilated cardiomyopathy. It was a congenital condition, but the stress of a minor respiratory infection had triggered a total collapse. "Can we save him?" Emily asked, her voice cracking as tears blurred her vision. She had watched Kobe take his first steps. She couldn't imagine the sanctuary without his chaotic energy. "We have to," Dr. Williams said, his eyes never leaving the monitor. "He's fighting. Look at his hand." Kobe's small, leathery hand was twitching, his thumb rubbing over the familiar scar on his palm, as if seeking comfort even in unconsciousness. "James, get me the lidocaine and the digoxin, now." The next hour was a battle for every heartbeat. There were moments where the monitor wailed a steady tone and the room went deathly silent until the beat returned. Emily held Kobe's tiny hand the entire time. "Hold on, little guy, just hold on," she whispered. She realized then that the hug hadn't just been for comfort, it had been a moment of surrender. Kobe had used that final ounce of strength to reach out to the one person who could save him, entrusting his life to the hands that held him. Finally, the rhythm on the monitor smoothed out. It wasn't perfect, but it was steady. "He's stable," Dr. Williams exhaled, wiping sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. "He's going to make it through the night." Emily slumped against the medical cabinets, sliding down until she hit the floor. She buried her face in her hands and let out a sob she had been holding back for hours. They moved Kobe into a recovery unit, a warm space with soft blankets. As the anesthesia wore off, the real test began. Kobe woke first, groggy and shaking his head. He looked around, let out a soft, morning whimper, and then saw Emily sitting outside the plexiglass. There was no aggression in his eyes, only a profound, glassy recognition. The recovery wasn't easy. The next few weeks were a roller coaster of specialized care. Kobe hated the taste of the heart meds, so Emily had to get creative, hiding the pills in mashed bananas and tiny spoonfuls of yogurt. Some days he was lethargic, and the other gorillas in the troop would look at Emily through the glass with pleading eyes, sensing their youngest member was missing. Emily spent hours sitting by his recovery unit, reading books aloud to keep him calm, keeping her promise that he wouldn't fight this alone. One rainy Tuesday, exactly a month after the incident, Emily was back in the main enclosure. The zoo was closed for the evening, and the rhythmic drumming of rain on the skylights felt like a familiar song. She felt a presence behind her and turned around. It was Kobe. He was back with the troop, standing on all fours, looking stronger than he had in weeks. He sat right in front of her and looked at the scar on his palm, then up at her face. Slowly, deliberately, Kobe raised his hand and pressed his small, leathery palm against the glass. Emily froze. A lump formed in her throat the size of a grapefruit. She slowly raised her own hand, placing it against the glass, aligning her palm with his. His hand was so small compared to her memories of the adult silverbacks, but the heat of his life felt identical through the pain. He didn't pull away. He leaned his forehead against the glass, just resting there with her. It was a thank you. It was a bond forged in the fire of a crisis, a silent acknowledgement that they were family. Emily realized then that she hadn't just saved an animal, she had preserved a soul. In return, Kobe had given her a sense of purpose that no paycheck could ever provide. As the rain began to fall outside again, Emily smiled. Kobe was going to be okay, and so was she. The sanctuary was once again a chaotic symphony, but the most beautiful note was the steady, quiet beat of a small heart that refused to stop. If you enjoyed this emotional journey of survival and the incredible bond between zookeepers and the animals they love, please don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us share these stories of animal empathy with the world. And if you want to see more heartwarming rescues and animal reunions, make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.